Not all monsters hide under the bed. Some tuck you in at night. They bring you warm milk. They whisper, "I'm doing this for your own good." And slowly, they swallow you whole. Carl Jung discovered a terrifying truth. The most dangerous prison is the one built with love, with affection, with guilt, with care. It does not come with bars or chains. It comes with dependence. It comes with emotional debt. And worst of all, it comes with a smile. You did not grow up. You grew obedient. You did not learn how to stand. You learned how to please, because she needed you to need her. This is not about abuse. It's about devotion turned destructive. A mother who loves too much, who gives too much, who never lets go. Jung called her the devouring mother, not because she was cruel, but because her love was so complete. It consumed every part of your becoming. You did not even notice it. You thought it was normal. You thought staying small meant being good. And now, you are stuck in your 20s, in your 30s, emotionally frozen, spiritually stunted, still waiting for someone to tell you what to do, still haunted by the echo of her voice when you try to take risks, still hearing, "Are you sure? That's dangerous. Don't leave me." This is not just your story. This is a silent epidemic, and until you name it, until you see it, you will never escape it. This video will reveal the psychology behind the devouring mother, why men stay emotionally paralyzed, and how Carl Jung's most brutal insight might be the key to your freedom. Because the hardest enemy to face is the one who made you feel safest. What if the person who loved you most was also the one who unconsciously ruined you? That's the horror Carl Jung dared to explore. A horror wrapped in hugs, kisses, and warm meals. Not abuse, not neglect, but too much love, too much protection, too much of her. He called it the devouring mother, a mother who loves her child so deeply that she never lets him go. Not physically, but psychologically. It starts with kindness. She ties his shoes, packs his lunch, holds his hand tightly, and the boy feels safe. But as he grows, she does not loosen her grip, she tightens it. She chooses his clothes, decides what's best for him, tells him how to feel, who to trust, what's dangerous. She never says, "I don't want you to grow up," but her actions scream it. Jung saw this as a deep archetype, the shadow side of the nurturing mother. When care becomes control, when love becomes manipulation, when warmth becomes a cage. Because here's the truth. Love can be a weapon, not just hatred, not just violence, but love, when it's used to keep someone weak. She doesn't mean to hurt him. She's not evil. She's afraid of being alone, afraid of becoming irrelevant, afraid that if he grows wings, he'll fly too far to need her. So she wraps him in guilt, subtle, silent, suffocating. "You're my whole world. No one will love you like I do. I sacrificed everything for you. You wouldn't hurt your mother, would you?" Every one of these words is a chain. You hear them as love, but they're commands, disguised as devotion. She doesn't raise a son. She raises a servant, an emotional caretaker, a man too afraid to assert himself, because he still hears her voice in his head every time he tries. Jung didn't invent this idea. He noticed it everywhere, in myths, legends, dreams, in the fairy tales where the witch locks the boy in the forest, in the dragon that guards the hero's path, in the siren song that pulls him back to shore every time he tries to leave. The devouring mother is an archetypal force, a universal pattern in the psyche. And it doesn't just show up in mothers. It shows up in governments, institutions, even relationships. Anytime something says, "We'll keep you safe, just give up your freedom," that's her voice. But the mother is where it begins, because she doesn't raise a man. She raises a boy who stays a boy forever, someone who doubts himself, who avoids responsibility, who seeks women that remind him of her and resents them for it. He becomes a prisoner of comfort, a hostage of dependency. And the bars of that prison? Affection, safety, love. It's not the pain that traps him. It's the pleasure, the softness, the sweet poison, and the worst part, he doesn't know it's happening, because no one questions mother love. It's sacred, holy, pure. But not all purity is good, and not all care is healing. Sometimes it's control, sometimes it's fear, and sometimes it's the thing that stops you from ever becoming yourself. Not all chains are made of metal. Some are made of memories, of voices you can't silence, of feelings you were never allowed to feel. Childhood is supposed to be where you learn who you are, but if you grew up under the shadow of a devouring mother, you never learned that. You only learned who she needed you to be. The child becomes her mirror, her emotional sponge, her emotional therapist, her emotional husband. He doesn't get to express anger because it hurts her. He doesn't get to chase his own dreams because what if he fails and disappoints her? He learns to shrink himself, to silence himself, to submit. And at first, it looks innocent. He's a nice boy, polite, sensitive, always puts others first. But behind that smile is a child who never got to be one. He was never allowed to say, "No, I don't want that. I'm angry. I disagree." Because every time he tried, he saw her cry, or go silent, or say, "After everything I've done for you," that sentence is a dagger, a guilt trip laced with love, and it works. So he gives in, again and again, until one day he realizes he has no idea who he is, only who he's supposed to be. This is the psychological wound Jung warned about, a fractured identity. A man who's physically grown, but emotionally still tied to his mother's expectations. He fears failure, not because he can't handle it, but because he doesn't want to let her down. He fears success, because it might take him too far from her. He fears independence, because he's never practiced it. And so, he hides, in routine, in comfort, in addiction, in quiet desperation. Real-world signs of this wound. Chronic indecisiveness, because you were never allowed to make your own choices. People-pleasing, because love was conditional on obedience. Fear of confrontation, because disagreement meant emotional punishment. Attraction to controlling partners, because you're used to love feeling like surveillance. Guilt for enjoying freedom, because you were trained to see autonomy as betrayal. These men grow up walking on emotional eggshells, not just around their mothers, but around everyone, because they've internalized the idea that their needs are dangerous, their desires are selfish, their voice is a threat. They don't lead, they follow, they don't express, they repress, and eventually they explode, sometimes in anger, sometimes in breakdown, sometimes in total emotional withdrawal. And when they look back, they can't even explain it, because the mother was so loving. She gave me everything. She just cared too much. They don't realize love can wound you when it's used to control you, and guilt is the weapon that keeps you from healing. Jung saw these patterns over and over in men who couldn't commit, in men who were addicted, anxious, or depressed, in men who resented women but didn't know why. The truth? They weren't angry at women. They were angry at her. But that anger was buried, because society says you can't be angry at your mother. You're supposed to be grateful. You're supposed to honor her. You're supposed to be a good son. But what if that version of good means dying inside? What if being a good son means never becoming a real man? Jung believed that until you face this shadow, you'll stay stuck, emotionally paralyzed, stunted, performing life instead of living it. These wounds don't bleed. They don't leave scars, but they echo. In every job you walk away from, in every woman you chase who doesn't love you, in every dream you give up because you should be more realistic. They echo in the way you speak softly when you should be roaring, in the way you apologize for existing every time you speak your truth. This is the trauma no one talks about, because it doesn't look like trauma. It looks like love. It feels like love, but it's not love. It's emotional ownership. It's dependency masked as devotion. It's a boy robbed of his becoming. This is the invisible chain, and unless you see it, you'll keep dragging it through your whole life. Some prisons don't need bars. They don't need guards. They only need one thing, your belief that you're not allowed to leave. This is why most people never escape the devouring mother. Not because they can't, but because they don't know they're trapped. It's a hidden prison, built with warmth, decorated with affection, but reinforced by guilt. From the outside, it looks perfect. A mother who loves her son more than anything. A bond that's so close. People praise it. They say, "You're lucky. You must be so grateful. She did everything for you." But they don't see the truth. She didn't raise a man. She raised a dependent. Carl Jung warned about this. He saw how men were being emotionally castrated, not through hate, but through love without boundaries. And the most terrifying part? Society glorifies it. Our culture worships motherhood. And in many ways, rightly so. But when that worship becomes blind, we stop asking the right questions. What if a mother's love is smothering? What if her kindness becomes control? What if she cripples her child by protecting him too much? The devouring mother doesn't yell. She doesn't punish. She guilt trips. She says things like, "I only worry because I love you. After all I sacrificed, this is how you treat me? You're breaking my heart." And just like that, you shrink. Because you don't want to hurt her. Because she meant well. Because love feels like a debt you can never fully repay. That's the trap. You begin to believe that growing up, having boundaries, living your own life, is a form of betrayal. So, you stay. Physically, you may move out. But psychologically, you never leave. You still hear her voice in your head when you make decisions. You still feel her disappointment when you choose something she wouldn't. You still measure your worth by how pleased she seems. This isn't love. This is emotional colonization. And most men don't even see it. They think it's just how things are. They say, "My mom's just really involved. She means well. I don't want to upset her." But underneath all that politeness is a man who's never had the chance to be angry, to be rebellious, to say no. Because every no felt like murder. He learned early on that his emotional freedom costs her emotional peace. So he trades it, over and over, until it becomes a reflex. This is why most never escape. Because the prison is wrapped in praise, and the key is hidden in shame. Jung believed this dynamic is one of the most dangerous in human psychology because it disguises weakness as goodness. The obedient son, the nice guy, the helpful boy who never says what he really thinks. He's rewarded, until one day he breaks. Maybe he becomes deeply depressed. Maybe he turns to addiction. Maybe he enters relationship after relationship, where he repeats the same dynamic. He looks for women who take care of him, who make decisions for him, who smother him, just like she did. Because on some level, he's still trying to finish a story that was never his to begin with. And what about society? It reinforces the lie. We hear phrases like, "mama's boy," as a joke. A man who respects his mother will respect his wife. Behind every successful man is a strong mother. These aren't always wrong, but they can be dangerous when they stop us from seeing emotional entanglement as a real psychological wound. Because here's the truth. Not every man who loves his mother is free. Some are trapped, crushed under the weight of expectations they never chose, and they don't talk about it. Because who wants to admit that the woman who loved you the most might also be the one who damaged you the most? It feels ungrateful. It feels cruel. So they stay silent. But silence is not healing. It's surrender. Jung didn't preach hate. He didn't say blame your mother. He said, see clearly, separate, become whole. And you can't become whole if half of you still belongs to her. That's why most people never escape, because escape feels like betrayal. When in truth, it's the beginning of becoming. You grow older, you learn new skills, you pay your bills, but you never really grow up. You're still the boy in the bedroom, still looking for approval, still afraid to say what you really want, still measuring your worth by how pleased she is. This is the cost of staying blind. You can have a job, a house, even a partner, and still be emotionally paralyzed, because your mind is wired for obedience, not autonomy. You second-guess your decisions, you fear conflict, you avoid risks, because deep down, you learned that stepping out of line hurts the person you love, and so you became nice, harmless, accommodating. But behind that smile is quiet rage. Carl Jung called it the failure to individuate. When a man never becomes psychologically separate from his parents, especially his mother, and this failure leaks into every area of your adult life. You don't fall in love, you fall into familiarity. You're drawn to women who remind you of your mother, not because they're kind, but because they're controlling. You confuse care with control. You mistake anxiety for love. You let your boundaries disappear because you were never allowed to have them in the first place. At first, it feels comforting. She gets you, she wants the best for you. But soon, you're drowning. You realize you're not a man in a relationship. You're a boy, still trying to please mom. And every time you assert yourself, you feel guilty. You apologize for needing space. You shrink to make peace. And the cycle repeats. Men who never break from the devouring mother often carry a deep buried rage. But they don't express it outwardly. They implode. They self-sabotage. They fall into addiction. They stay in dead-end jobs. They avoid responsibility, not because they're lazy, but because success requires self-definition. And you can't define yourself if someone else already did it for you. You were told what to feel, what to fear, what to value. And now, when it's time to live your own story, you don't know where to begin. So, you play small and hate yourself for it. In Jungian terms, your shadow, the part of you repress, starts to grow. You suppress your anger, your sexuality, your wildness. Because she taught you those things were bad, disrespectful, or scary. But what you suppress doesn't disappear. It waits, it festers, and one day, it erupts. Maybe you blow up in traffic, maybe you cheat, maybe you ghost everyone and disappear, and you don't understand why. But the truth is, you were never taught how to be whole, only how to be good. And good is not the same as real. The longer you stay blind, the more invisible you become, to others and to yourself. People can't feel you. You don't have strong preferences, strong opinions, strong presence. You're agreeable, but forgettable. Women may like you, but they don't desire you. Bosses may hire you, but they don't promote you. Friends may call you loyal, but they don't come to you for leadership or vision. Why? Because you don't stand anywhere. You were never allowed to. This is the most tragic cost. You can have everything that looks like success, career, relationship, reputation, but still feel empty. Because it wasn't you who built that life. It was the version of you that wouldn't make her cry. So you go through the motions. You please everyone. You smile at family dinners. And quietly wonder. Is this all there is? Carl Jung once said, "Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their children than the unlived life of the parent." The devouring mother projects her unlived dreams, her unresolved fears, her need for emotional validation onto her child. And the child, he sacrifices himself for her peace. But peace built on self-abandonment is not peace. It's slow suicide. You lose your fire, your depth, your masculinity, your soul, all in the name of being good. But there's still hope. Because even if the trap was built in childhood, the door has always been open. You have been told to be good, to be obedient, to keep the peace, to never make her cry. But Carl Jung offers something different, something dangerous, something sacred. He calls it individuation, the lifelong process of becoming your true self. Not the version molded by family, not the one shaped by guilt, but the one buried underneath it all, waiting to be born. Because if the devouring mother is a prison of affection, individuation is the jailbreak. Individuation isn't self-improvement, it's self-discovery. It's not about becoming better, it's about becoming real. In Jung's words, it's the process by which a person becomes an individual, a separate, indivisible unity, or whole. It's about separating from the unconscious influence of others, especially your parents. Because before you can truly love, lead, or create, you have to exist as your own person. And that means confronting the parts of you that were buried long ago, the parts that weren't allowed to survive under her love. To break free, you first have to see the trap. This is called the mother complex, a deep psychological imprint where the mother becomes a symbol of emotional authority, control, and identity. In men, this often shows up as guilt when asserting independence, fear of disappointing women, choosing partners who mother instead of challenge, emotional passivity masked as kindness, rage at women that's too shameful to express. To break this complex, you don't need to attack your mother. You need to reclaim what you gave up for her love, your anger, your confidence, your voice, your autonomy. The first step in individuation is to confront your shadow, the part of yourself you were taught to hide. This includes all the traits your mother, or society, deemed too much. anger, sexuality, assertiveness, independence, rebellion. The devouring mother fears these traits because they threaten control, so she smothers them. And you internalize that smothering. But Jung warns, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. If you don't face your shadow, you will live in quiet torment, controlled by fears that were never yours to carry. Shadow work is not about becoming dark. It's about becoming whole. You don't need to act on every dark impulse, but you must admit it exists. Only then can you choose, instead of react. Here's the hardest part. You don't need to hate your mother to be free of her. This isn't about blame. It's about boundaries. Many devouring mothers are not evil. They are emotionally wounded women who unconsciously make their children the center of their universe. They say things like, "I just want the best for you. No one loves you like I do. I sacrificed everything." And they mean it. But love without respect is not love. It's enmeshment. You can forgive her pain while still refusing to live in it. You can thank her for what she gave you and still reject what she took. Emotional separation means you no longer need her approval to feel valid. You no longer fear her disappointment like it's death. You stop living her unlived life and start living yours. The greatest casualty of the devouring mother is the good boy. He's polite. He's pleasing. He does what he's told. He makes everyone comfortable. But he doesn't exist. He's a mask, a coping mechanism, a soul on pause. Jung's individuation demands the death of this false self, and that feels like betrayal. You will feel guilt. You will feel grief. You will feel like a bad son. But you're not. You're simply choosing truth over comfort, authenticity over obedience. The good boy dies so a man can live. When you separate from the devouring mother, you start to reclaim your masculine energy, not toxic aggression, but sacred direction. You no longer live to be chosen. You choose. You no longer need to be understood. You stand on what you know. You no longer fear conflict. You welcome truth, even when it hurts. You become dangerous, not to others, but to lies, weakness, and manipulation. A man rooted in his own soul cannot be controlled. He can love without losing himself. He can walk away when needed. He can serve without being enslaved. Jung believed that every human being has an inner calling toward wholeness, not perfection, wholeness. That means embracing every part of you, your light and your darkness, your strength and your softness, your logic and your intuition. When you individuate, you don't become someone new. You return to the person you were before the world told you who to be. This is not a quick fix. It's a lifelong path. But every step you take away from the mother complex is a step toward yourself. Jung once wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent. But what if you stopped carrying it? What if you became the father you never had? What if you gave yourself the permission to be bold, assertive, honest, and real? That is the final step of individuation, to father yourself, to guide your inner child out of the fog of emotional dependence and into the fire of personal destiny. You stop being a child of someone else's dream and become the author of your own. This is the real initiation into manhood, not given by society, not marked by age, but earned in silence, through pain, truth, and the willingness to lose everything false. This is individuation, the path away from comfort, toward character, the path away from being loved, toward being whole. There comes a moment, quiet, cold, and unannounced, when you realize you were never truly living. You were performing, pleasing, shrinking, not because you were weak, but because the person you feared disappointing was the same one who first taught you what love means. This is the final test. Not everyone takes it. Most will stay in the cage, decorated with memories, guarded by guilt, justified by tradition, but a few, they choose to leave, and they never come back the same. This is your moment. You're not a boy anymore. You don't need permission to grow, to speak, to leave. You don't need to keep sacrificing yourself on the altar of her comfort. Because love that demands your silence is not love. It's control. Jung said, "A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them." The devouring mother lives in your head, but her reign ends the moment you walk through that inferno and come out the other side, Scarred, yes, but your own. Let go of the guilt. She will say you've changed. She'll say you're cold. She will say you have forgotten everything she did for you. But that's not guilt. That's growth being mistaken for betrayal. You didn't come this far to become what she needed. You came this far to become who you are. And if love was real, it will survive your truth. The moment you break away, there is silence. A psychological orphaning, an emotional death, a ripping away from the only identity you've ever known. But in that silence, if you stay long enough, a new voice emerges. Yours. The voice that was buried under her expectations, society's lies, and your own fear of becoming fully alive. That voice won't scream. It won't beg. It won't apologize. It will simply say, I am, and for the first time, you'll believe it. You have two paths. One, stay where it's safe. Let guilt guide your life. Let comfort numb your hunger. Let love keep you small. Or two, walk into the unknown. Feel the pain. Face the rage. Reclaim yourself. But know this. On the other side of the breakaway is a man no one can manipulate. A soul no mother can devour. A life no longer lived in shadows. Not all sons are born. Some must break away to become men. You were never free. You just did not question the walls because they were painted with affection. But now you see them, and now you decide. Because the scariest monsters don't chase you. They raise you.